Hey, we are on chapter 6 of the Heavenly Spheres, page 77, starting with scoring of dignities and abilities. I have a feeling at first it'll be good, but then it's going to get very tedious, and we'll see how it goes. May just be a lot of listing numbers. Okay, here we go. The scoring system. Scoring of dignities and abilities, the scoring system. The evaluation of essential dignities and abilities of the planets is made by a point system. A planet in rulership is awarded 5 points, a planet in exaltation 4 points, in triplicity 3 points, in term 2 points, and in face 1 point. As to the abilities, detriment corresponds to -5 points and fall to -4. To score a particular planet, determine if the planet is found in any of its dignities, and if so, give it the respective number, or subtract respective number of points. That was their dignity. Okay. The same procedure is followed for abilities, giving them the corresponding negative points. There we go. The final score, negative or positive, for each planet shows the degree of dignity or debility of that planet. For example, Mercury at 16 of Cancer is in its own term in face. It therefore receives 2 points for term and 1 for face, for a total of 3 points. Since Mercury has no debility in this sign, no points are subtracted. Another example, Jupiter at 4 Gemini is in its own participating triplicity and in its own face, for a total of 4 points. However, Jupiter in its own detriment in this sign is in its own detriment in the sign, so it loses 5 points. The final result is 1 negative point. If the final score for the planet is positive, the planet is dignified. The more positive points the planet accumulates, the greater the dignity. A planet in rulership or exaltation that also has dignity by triplicity, term, or face reinforces its power. The same occurs when a planet accumulates triplicity with term or face because the nature of the planet is reinforced. Planets that apparently are neutral in a horoscope can reveal themselves to be stronger than they appear. Thus, a planet with positive score is considered in good condition. With a score of above 4 points, it is considered strong. Above 5 points, it is considered very strong. A planet with a negative score is considered debilitated. Although the debility may be attenuated by minor dignities, the planet will continue to have difficulties in its expression. A planet with a negative score is thus considered in poor condition. The lower the score, with a score lower than 4 negative points, it is said to be clearly debilitated. I'm going to read a little box. It says, note that the state of debility is always given by detriment and fall, which are opposite the major dignities, rulership and exaltation. The dignities that mitigate that condition are always the minors, triplicity, term, and face, not having sufficient power to negate the debilitated state. In some situations, debility is overcome by dignity, which results in a planet with some strength. Because there are opposites, the rulership and exaltation cannot coexist with their respective debilities, detriment and fall. Nonetheless, there can exist overlaps between debilities and other dignities. A planet in detriment or fall can at the same time be in triplicity, term, or face, In this case, the secondary dignities will mitigate the debilitated state of the planet in detriment or fall. In specific instances, they can even recover the dignity. For example, consider Venus at 12 degrees of Virgo. In this position, Venus is in its sign opposite its own exaltation, Pisces, and thus in fall. The score of the planet in fall is -4. However, if Venus has triplicity in Virgo and at 12 degrees, it is also in its own term in face, and thus gains 3 points for triplicity, 2 for term and 1 for face, the total of 6 points. If we subtract the 4 negative points, there are still 2 positive points. Thus, an apparently debilitated planet can, if the minor dignities are counted, have some dignity. In practice, whatever Venus represents in the horoscope would not be greatly affected by the debility. In other cases, the dignities and abilities cancel each other out, leaving a planet with a score of 0 points. In these cases, we consider the planet is slightly weakened. For example, Venus at 8 degrees of Scorpio is in detriment, giving it 5 negative points. Nonetheless, because it is in a water sign, it has diurnal triplicity, which gives it 3 points, and in this degree of Scorpio, it's in its own term, which adds 2 more points. The sum of the 5 negative points with the 5 positive points is 0. We can then consider that the initial debility of this planet is attenuated by the minor dignities. There is still difficulty in expression, but it is not noticeable. There is one special case. When a planet has absolutely no dignity in its position, it's called peregrine. The term peregrine means in passing. I thought I meant wanderer. Okay. The planet has nothing of itself in that area of the zodiac, and therefore it is subject to the lords that govern there and has little freedom of action. It is considered a type of debility, which is also considered a type of debility, which is aggravated in the case where it is added to detriment or fall. The sun is peregrine in all of Taurus, and in the first, second thirds of Gemini, all of Cancer, the second and thirds of Virgo, all of Libra, where it is debilitated by fall, the first and thirds of Scorpio, the first and second thirds of Capricorn, all of Aquarius, where it is debilitated by detriment, and all of Pisces. This is where it gets tedious, just listing stuff. The moon is a peregrine in the signs Aries, Gemini, and Leo, in the second and third thirds of Libra, the first and third thirds of Sagittarius, and the first and second thirds of Aquarius. Mercury is peregrine in Aries from 0 to 12 degrees and from 20 to 29 degrees, and Taurus from 14 degrees to 29 degrees in the first and second thirds of Cancer, and Leo from 0 degrees to 17 degrees and from 24 degrees to 29 degrees, in Scorpio from 0 degrees to 11 degrees and from 19 degrees to 29 degrees, in Sagittarius from 10 degrees to 17 degrees and from 21 to 29 degrees. In that sign, it's also in detriment. In Capricorn, from 8 degrees to 29 degrees, and in Pisces from 0 degrees to 16 degrees and from 19 degrees to 29 degrees. In this sign, it's also in detriment and fall. Venus is peregrine in Aries from 0 to 16 degrees and from 12 degrees to 20 degrees. In this sign, it's also in detriment. In Gemini, from 0 degrees to 17 degrees and from 17 degrees to 29 degrees. In Leo, from 0 degrees to 6 degrees and from 11 degrees to 29 degrees. In Sagittarius, from 0 degrees to 12 degrees and from 17 to 29 degrees. And in Aquarius, from 13 to 29 degrees. Mars is peregrine in Gemini from 0 to 10 degrees and from 24 to 29 degrees. In Leo, in the first and second thirds. In Leo, in the first and second thirds. In Libra, from 0 to 28 degrees. I mean, that's pretty much the whole thing. In this sign, it's also in detriment. In Sagittarius, 0 to 26 degrees, and in Aquarius, 0 to 20 degrees, and from 25 to 29 degrees. Jupiter is peregrine in Taurus from 0 to 14 degrees, from 22 to 29 degrees, and in Virgo from 0 to 17 and from 21 to 29 degrees, where it's also in detriment. In Scorpio from 0 degrees to 19 degrees and from 24 to 29 degrees, and in Capricorn from 14 to 29 degrees, where it adds to the debility by fall. Saturn is a peregrine in the first and second thirds of Taurus, in Cancer from 0 to 26 degrees, where it's added by detriment, in Virgo from 0 to 28 degrees, and in Scorpio from 0 to 24 degrees, and in Pisces from 10 to 27 degrees. Note, some authors designate a planet without dignity or debility in its position as peregrine. However, the majority seem to concur in attributing the peregrine designation to a planet without dignity, independently of whether or not it is debilitated. The actual term seems to point to this conclusion, since it suggests the idea of the wanderer without ties or responsibilities. Variance on the scoring system. The system of scoring that we presented is the most current, particularly since the end of the Middle Ages. However, in some Arabic authors, such as Ali bin Ragal and al-Biruni, give more importance to term than to triplicity. In that system of scoring, apparently older, term received 3 points and triplicity 2. In the medieval astrological literature, there also exist references to other systems, but these appear not to have had a practical relevant expression. Examples: scoring of essential dignities. The examples uses this horoscope of German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche to score the dignities and abilities of the planets. We start by noting the zodiacal position of each planet and using the table of essential dignities to assign the respective scores. Saturn is at 0 degrees Aquarius in 46 minutes. In its position, it receives 5 points for rulership and 3 more for diurnal triplicity, ruler of this air sign. It has no abilities. Saturn, therefore, has a total of 8 points. Jupiter at 26 degrees Pisces in 2 minutes. It also has rulership and therefore receives 5 points, but it has no other dignity. Therefore, we do not add any more points. Since it has no ability, no points are subtracted for it. It totals 5 points. And you can see the chart of Friedrich Nietzsche if you have the book open. If not, put it in Astro. Is born October 15th, 1844 at 10 hours and 0 minutes LMT, Rocken, Germany. Okay, so now you can look and see it. Mars is at 27 degrees Virgo, 56 minutes. Because it is in an earth sign, it receives 3 points for participating triplicity. It is also has 2 points for being in its own terms. Since it has no abilities, it accumulates a total of 5 points. The sun is located in Libra at 22 degrees, 7 minutes. In this sign, the sun has no dignity at all. Since it's in fall, it receives -4 points. It has a total of -4 points. Venus is at 6 degrees Virgo in 22 minutes. It receives 3 points for diurnal triplicity and for being in an earth sign, But 4 points are subtracted for it being in the sign of its fall. The final score is -1 point. Mercury is at 4 degrees Libra, 9 minutes, and in this air sign, it receives 3 points for nocturnal triplicity. It has no more dignities or debilities, making it a total of 3 points. The moon is at 9 degrees Sagittarius in 2 minutes. It's in this zodiacal position. The moon has no dignity or debility at all. It thus receives 0 points. Comparing the results, we can see the most dignified planet with a total of 8 points, followed by Jupiter and Mars, both with 5 points, and Mercury with 3 points of dignity. All these planets are dignified, therefore everything that they signify in this chart will have a stable and constructive expression. On the other hand, the Sun and Venus have negative scores, finding themselves debilitated. Those things they signify in the chart will have a more difficult and laborious expression. The moon has 0 points. It is therefore not dignified, and in these cases we consider that the planet is slightly debilitated. The moon in Sagittarius and the sun in Libra are peregrine, where the latter adds to the condition of peregrine to that of fall. With this scoring system, we can determine with ease the operational state of the planets. Although these scoring systems serve to measure the quality of a planet's expression, they're only one factor in delineation, and they should not be interpreted by themselves. The dignity or debility of a planet only makes sense in the context of the entire horoscope. The scoring system serves only to aid the astrologer in the evaluation of dignity and debility. It gives an approximate notion of the effective power of the planets and should not be applied in a rigid manner. One must remember that this quantitative method is an aid to interpretation, which is qualitative. In practice, there is no point wasting time on overly detailed comparisons of the scores of planets. The idea is to have a notion of its regular strength and to apply that information to the properly contextualized interpretation of a planet. So we are going to pause here because the next chapter is the Almutin, and I do want to be fresh for that. Thank you.